Hey guys, this is Bankai reporting live from the Nexus, and today I'm bringing you more Hawken PvP. So guys, this is basically a video I wanted to do from a while back. Basically the inspiration behind this just comes from players not knowing how to deal with losing at video games, specifically 1v1 encounters. And sometimes this results in people really getting into their feelings, guys, which is fine, but some folks really do take it too far. And one thing I realized is that there are gamers who aren't quite certain of how to take themselves from one level to the next. So if you're a wholesome gamer who likes to compete and have fun, and you're wondering how to improve your gaming experience, then you might want to watch this video all the way to the end. I'm going to share some tips that I think are useful when trying to improve your gameplay. Of course, if you're just a straight up garbage hater with no sense of sportsmanship, then this video is definitely not for you. And at first, guys, some of these tips might seem really simple or meaningless, but I promise you they can be everything in PvP, because in PvP, guys, comfort is the most important thing, and some of these tips are centered around finding that comfort that allows you to perform better. By the way, if you like gaming content just like this, you should definitely hit subscribe. Commit to the Nexus for the most unpopular opinion on pop culture. I also do cool PvP commentary just like the one you're listening to right now. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, one important mental trick, or I suppose you could just call it straight up being productive, is to, instead of getting upset when you lose, instead try and be practical about things. As long as you lost in a fair fight, there's a sound reason why you did not win. For instance, I found that sometimes if I'm, fighting a weaker recruit and I'm playing too defensively, what happens is I end up giving them too many opportunities, and we end up in this long drawn out fight when all I really had to do was rush them. Another example is if you have superior ping but still lost the fight, then chances are you should have been more aggressive and instead tried going for damage instead of being overly tactical or trying to dodge all of their attacks. In a high tier fight, dodging should not be your priority most times, because a top player is going to shoot you and he's going to land his shots as long as you're in the open. So if you have better ping than that player, then chances are you'd be better off just charging towards him and just trying to deal as much damage as possible. The next thing is, if your opponent is just straight up better than you in all situations, then being practical still applies. It still applies here, guys, and that basically takes us to my next point. You can be practical by simply asking questions. I think a lot of pilots and gamers in general never improve because they never ask questions, and they never engage in dialogue with good or better pilots than themselves. And if you never ask questions, you will never get answers, and it's really that simple. A lot of what I learned came from speaking with some of the best pilots in the community, and believe me, speaking with good pilots can be more productive than even fighting them. Check your settings. I have a philosophy, guys, and that philosophy is perfecting your settings can sometimes be more important than training. I'll give you an example. I started to improve at this game before I perfected my sensitivity and dead zones and so on. And I started to develop a little reputation, but it wasn't until I figured out the settings that work for me that I started to clear out lobbies. So in other words, I was getting better at the game, but once I found settings that made me more comfortable and improved my movements and damage output, that was when I really started pissing people off. And never be afraid to experiment with your settings. This is so important, guys, that I'll actually break it down into a few more subheadings. So let's move on and let's talk controls. I even made a whole video about this one. Using L3 to drive your mech 9.5 out of 10 times is just counterproductive. The correct layout, or the traditional layout, should be L1 for boost, R1 for flying. You can get creative with the others, but having a convenient boost button will improve your gameplay, no doubt. And if you lose 1v1s a lot and you're using L3 to boost, it can be a huge part of the problem. L1 boost just makes you faster. Lower your sensitivity. While everyone goes for a different sensitivity, generally speaking, top players use relatively lower sensitivity. Even if there's someone you know personally who is great and uses high sensitivity, I can assure you he would do even better if he turned things down a few notches. It's hard to say what setting is best for each person, as everyone is different, but I believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe great players tend to go for 260 to 290 and with a dead zone of 0. I'm a bit of a weirdo, so my sensitivity and dead zones are kind of all over the place, but generally they're super low. Even my sensitivity is even lower than the usual 260 and 290, and my dead zone I usually experiment with from 0 to 8, because I just feel like in Hawken sensitivity is unstable. Like sometimes it seems like it switches. I don't know if I'm crazy, guys, but that's how I experience it. My sensitivity is so low that I'm not quite sure how I manage to be effective at close range combat, but I know I depend on my boost turns a lot to track opponents, and I've sort of learned to use boost turning to compensate for my slow turn speed. To try and break down the importance of sensitivity even clearer to you, here's an example of how I figured out my ideal sensitivity, alright? So let's just say I time myself killing a weaker pilot, and let's say I clocked 10 seconds when I was using 400 sensitivity. So what I did, right, I took 10 seconds to drain his entire HP. I would then change my settings until I found that I could kill this pilot in 7 seconds, right? So let's say I turned it down to 200 sensitivity, and 200 sensitivity shaved 3 seconds off the time I took to drain this pilot's HP. From there, I would realize what sensitivity is best for me, and I also judge this by observing what sensitivity allows me to remain accurate almost no matter the distance between myself and the target. But trust me, guys, drop your sensitivity and try to keep your dead zones low or at 0, and give it a day or two, and I'm sure your results will improve. Experiment with your field of view. Another setting you might want to tinker with is your field of view. Some people don't pay attention to this setting so much, which doesn't have to be a problem, but like I mentioned earlier, comfort is everything in PvP, and there is always a chance that a certain field of view will be more comfortable for you. I think the game starts you off with like 85 or something like that. The lower your field of view, the better your frames, but you have a tighter view, obviously, and for me, that just makes me a bit claustrophobic, guys, honestly. It also makes me feel less agile, and the lowest I can go and still be effective, I think, is 95, but for you this might be very different. And just a tip, I believe most top players use 110, the max field of view. Someone correct me on that if they think I'm wrong. Fight better players. Another way to deal with defeat is to keep fighting better players, keep training. You're not fighting superhumans and demigods. The people on the other side are human beings as well. As long as you keep training and keep applying the approaches I outlined earlier, you will be well on your way to becoming a better pilot and overall gamer. Enter fight clubs. A good way to find good players to play against is to enter fight clubs. We've actually got a few that will be happening soon. Check the description box for a link to our Discord server. You can join that server to stay updated on when these events will take place. But fight clubs tend to attract really good players, guys, and you can participate and watch how more experienced players approach 1v1 standoffs. Watch videos. An even better way to see what good players are doing is to watch YouTube videos. I'll link you to a video of Heystone playing Hawken on the PS4. From an academic standpoint, this video is just a perfect example of how you should carry yourself in terms of gameplay: minimal flight, conservative and purposeful shooting, cautious but effective. It's some really good gameplay. The aim is always to look at what is successful and to copy those behaviors. I think I will cut this video right here before it gets too long, guys, although it's probably already too long, but whatever. But I hope these tips help, and remember, try not to get too discouraged. Everyone loses, guys, There's not one pilot you can name who I haven't seen lose, whether on video or in person. So it happens to the best of us. By the way, remember to like and to share this video, and definitely hit subscribe, unless of course you're a waste man. That's right, I don't make videos for waste man. Until next time.